Hello, thank you for being here, and I want to talk about how food waste can be helped through composting and just kind of what composting is. Hopefully, we'll kind of see how the things you do can have a bigger impact. So, 70.6 billion pounds of food waste was sent to landfills in 2015, and that all could have been eliminated had it been composted, which would reduce the amount of trash being sent to landfills. Now, on average, the U.S. household wastes about 31.9% of food that its members obtain. Now, obviously, that's an average, so more than two-thirds of households have food waste estimates of between 20 to 50%. But even the least wasteful households still waste around 8.7% of the food waste that they acquire. Now, we can also see that the average American family wastes 250 pounds of food each year. Now, when they're talking about food waste, they're talking about like edible food. So composting is more than just that. It can take on the rinds, the peels, the nitty-gritty stuff that we wouldn't want to eat, but that could still take away from the contribution to landfills. So, this would happen through the process of composting, which is the natural process of recycling organic matter like leaves and food scraps into a valuable fertilizer that helps to enrich the soil and plants. So, there's 3 different things involved in composting. So, it's the browns, which are the dead leaves, branches, newspapers, and twigs. The greens, which are grass clippings, vegetable waste, fruit scraps, and other materials like coffee grounds. And water, because having the right amount of water is important to helping the compost development. That soil needs to stay moist. So one way to compost is in the outdoors. You would select a dry, shady spot that's about 1 cubic yard, so 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet. And that would need to be near a water source. That way you could keep the soil moist. You would want to add your brown and green materials, so add your cardboard, your paper, your banana peels, or orange scraps as they're collected, and make sure that if there's any big chunks or big pieces, you would want to break them down. Once your compost is established, you mix in the grass clippings and green waste into the pile. You want to bury any fruit and vegetable waste under about 10 inches of compostable material, whether that be the soil or stuff that you've already composted. Now, another option is indoor composting. So this is good for people who might not have the outdoor space. Obviously, 3 feet is not the most, but it can also be pretty substantial if you're in an apartment or something where you don't have that space. So they do create bins that are actually specifically for composting, like this bin on the right here. It's relatively small and compact. It is actually 18.5 gallons, so it's still definitely enough to have plenty of space for all of your composting needs. But it's got little air holes in it. It's got a filter that can turn it to make it easy. So even if you didn't want to spend $60 on this, you could go out and just go find a tote or something that you have laying around, and you could punch some holes in it. The aeration helps the composting go. You'd want to add about 4 inches of dirt, put the newspaper on, and then just start adding in your scraps. Whenever you're adding in food, you typically want to add in some shredded paper to help balance it out. And then once a week, you'll need to mix the compost and add about half a scoop of new soil. So what you do want to compost would be fruits, vegetables, eggshells, coffee grounds, even tea bags, cardboard, houseplants. You could even compost your own hair or fur from animals. The other thing would be like fireplace ashes. Things you don't want to compost, though, would be like coal or charcoal ash, just because those tend to have a coating on them to make them light quicker. So that would actually be harmful to any plants that you were making, and they definitely wouldn't be ideal to ingest. Other things would be dairy products, so like butter, milk, even eggs, as well as like meat, fats, grease, lard, oils, bones. All of that can actually create odor problems and attract pests. So you definitely wouldn't want to attract pests. So even though they're all compostable and they would all break down, you're at a higher likelihood of having pests coming to visit. You also wouldn't want to you wouldn't want to put any cat or dog feces in there just because that can contain parasites, bacteria, and cause viruses harmful to humans. Now, obviously, there are some general concerns around composting, so we should put those at ease now. There's no denying that bugs are attracted to decomposing fruit and vegetables just by nature. But by having the browns of the cardboard and the leaves in there, it helps the materials in the compost dry out, so it actually discourages the swarm of fruit flies from attacking. Now, as for mice and rats, while this picture may be cute, the critters tend not to be when they are invading your personal space. Whenever you add food scraps to the compost bin, either dig in a little and deposit your food inside, and then you want to cover it again once you've added it all in. Or you could always plant mint around the area. That tends to deter them. Regardless, you typically want to avoid meats and dairies just because those are big components in attracting rodents. Another issue could be that the bin could start to smell. Even if it's an inside bin, you're not worried about rodents. If it starts to smell, it's probably because the balance is off, so you may need to add more newspaper or extra holes in the bin just because it's not getting proper filtration. While these are just the basics, there is plenty of information out there to be discovered. So I thank you for your time, and I hope that you've retained some new information from this.